The crystal towers of Zaphiria Prime gleamed like diamonds against the purple sky. For 1,000 years, the Zaphirians had built their civilization on peace. Their cities floated above the clouds, held up by gentle energy fields. Their people spoke in musical tones and had never known war. Dr. Lyra Vex stood in the High Council chamber, her blue skin pale with fear. Through the transparent walls, she could see the darkness approaching. It moved like a black storm across space, swallowing stars as it came. "The outer colonies are gone," reported Commander Thane, his voice shaking. "Kepler Station fell 3 hours ago. They consumed everything. The people, the buildings, even the rocks. The void swarm had come to their galaxy like a plague. These creatures were not like any life form the Zaphirians had ever seen. They were part machine, part insect, part something else entirely. They moved as one mind and ate everything in their path." "How long until they reach us?" asked Elder Mora from her floating chair. 2 days, maybe less," Thane replied. "Our ships are trying to evacuate the inner colonies, but there are too many people and not enough time." The Zaphirians had wonderful technology. They could speak across the galaxy in seconds. They could move mountains with their minds. They could heal any sickness and make dead worlds bloom with life. But they had no weapons. They had never needed them. "We must ask for help," Elder Mora said quietly. The council chamber fell silent. In all their history, the Zaphirians had never asked another species for help. They were proud of their peaceful ways. They looked down on species that still fought wars. "Who would help us?" asked Dr. Vex. "The Altarians are too far away. The Centauri would want to study the void swarm instead of fighting them. The other species." She paused. "They all have their own problems." Elder Mora closed her ancient eyes. "Send the message to everyone. To every species that can hear us. Tell them what is happening here. Maybe someone will care enough to help. Maybe someone. Tell them Mora. Tell them Mora." The next few hours were busy. The Zaphirians wrote their message carefully. They explained about the void swarm and how their peaceful civilization was about to die. They included their location and begged for any help that could be given. Dr. Vex worked with the communication team to broadcast the message across the galaxy. As the signal went out, she wondered if anyone would even hear it. Space was big, and most species only cared about themselves. The message traveled faster than light, jumping from relay station to relay station. It passed through the territories of a dozen different species. Most ignored it. Some recorded it for study later. A few sent back polite replies, saying they were sorry, but could not help. But in a small spiral arm of the galaxy, on a blue-green planet called Earth, something different happened. The message reached Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station just as Dr. Sarah Chen was finishing her night shift. She was tired and ready to go home when the computer started beeping. "What now?" she muttered, walking over to check the readings. The computer had detected an alien signal. Dr. Chen had been listening for alien messages for 15 years and had never found one. Her hands shook as she started the translation program. Slowly, words appeared on her screen. The message was beautiful and sad. It told of a peaceful people facing destruction. It begged for help from anyone who might be listening. Dr. Chen read it 3 times. Then, she picked up the phone and called her supervisor. Within an hour, the message was being read by scientists and military leaders around the world. The reaction was swift. Earth had only recently figured out how to travel between stars. Their technology was new and rough compared to the elegant descriptions in the alien message. But the leaders of Earth made a decision that surprised even themselves. They would help. Captain Sarah Chen, Dr. Chen's daughter, was called to the Pentagon the next morning. She commanded Earth's newest starship, the UES Fenrir. It was not a pretty ship. It was built for fighting, with thick armor and powerful weapons. "We're going to help them," General Morrison told her, pointing at a star map. I know it's far. I know we've never fought aliens before. But we can't just let them die. Captain Chen looked at the mission briefings. The Zaphirian message had included data about their attackers. The Void Swarm was huge, numbering in the billions. They had destroyed dozens of worlds. Any sane species would stay far away. Sir, we don't know anything about space combat on this scale, she said. Our ships are designed for fighting other humans. These things are different. Sir, maybe that's why we need to try, the general replied. Everyone else in the galaxy seems to think the same way. Maybe what this situation needs is someone who thinks differently. Within days, Earth was preparing its small fleet for the longest journey any human had ever attempted. The ships were loaded with weapons, supplies, and volunteers. No one was forced to go. Everyone wanted to help. As the human fleet prepared to leave Earth, another message came from the Zaphirians. It was shorter than the first. Please hurry. They are almost here. We have nowhere left to run. Captain Chen stood on the bridge of the Fenrir as Earth grew smaller behind them. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. They all knew this might be a one-way trip. They all knew they were probably going to their deaths. But they also knew they were doing the right thing. The human ships jumped into hyperspace, racing across the galaxy toward a world they had never seen, to help people they had never met, to fight an enemy they barely understood. Behind them, Earth continued to spin peacefully in space. Ahead of them lay the unknown. The meeting happened in the space between stars, far from any planet. Dr. Lyra Vex watched through the viewing screen as the human ships approached. She had expected something beautiful, like Zaphirian vessels with their flowing curves and crystal hulls. Instead, she saw metal monsters. The human ships looked angry. They were covered in weapons and armor plating. The largest one had painted teeth on its front, like some ancient predator. The others had names written in harsh human letters: Wolverine, Honey Badger, Fenrir. These are our rescuers, whispered Commander Thane. They look like pirates. Dr. Vex said nothing. She was the xenobiologist chosen to make first contact with the humans. She had studied every piece of data about them that the Zaphirian computers could find. What she had learned worried her. The humans came from a world they called Earth. It was covered in creatures that killed and ate each other. The humans themselves were descended from hunters who chased their prey until it died of exhaustion. They had spent their entire history fighting wars against each other. The communication channel crackled to life. A human face appeared on the screen. It belonged to a female with dark hair and sharp eyes. She wore some kind of military uniform. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force, the human said. Her voice was direct and strong. We received your message. We're here to help. Right. Dr. Vex activated her own communicator. Thank you for coming, Captain Chen. I am Dr. Lyra Vex of the Zaphirian Science Council. We are grateful that someone answered our call. How much time do we have? Captain Chen asked. The Void Swarm will reach our homeworld in 18 hours, Dr. Vex replied. Then we need to move fast. Can you send over your tactical data? Dr. Vex felt confused. Tactical data? Information about the enemy, their weapons, their ships, how they fight. We do not study such things, Dr. Vex admitted. We are a peaceful people. The human captain stared at her for a moment. Something moved across her face that Dr. Vex could not understand. It looked almost like sadness. I see, Captain Chen said. Can you send over some of your people? We need to coordinate our response. An hour later, Dr. Vex found herself aboard the human ship called Fenrir. The inside was nothing like a Zaphirian vessel. Everything was metal and sharp corners. The air smelled of oil and electricity. Humans moved quickly through the corridors, all wearing identical uniforms. They brought her to a room they called The war room. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps and ship positions. Human officers stood around a table, pointing at diagrams and speaking in short, clipped sentences. The void swarm moves in swarm formations, one human was saying. Classic hive behavior. They'll probably hit the outer defenses first, test our response. What about flanking maneuvers? Asked another. Can we hit them from the side while they're focused on the planet? Dr. Vex listened to their conversation with growing alarm. These humans spoke about violence as easily as Zaphirians discussed poetry. They had words for different types of attacks, different ways to hurt their enemies. Captain Chen noticed her distress. Dr. Vex? Are you all right? How do you know so much about fighting? Doctor. Creeding glove. Not bit of fine. When tay de G's? Vex asked. Your species has only recently achieved interstellar travel. How do you understand war better than civilizations that have existed for thousands of years? The room grew quiet. The humans looked at each other with expressions. Dr. Vex could not read. Because we've been fighting our entire existence? Captain Chen said simply. We've fought against nature, against predators, against each other, and against our own planet. Fighting is what we do. But why? Dr. Vex asked. Why would any species choose violence? We don't choose it, said a human officer. It chooses us, but we've learned to use it to protect what we love. Dr. Vex spent the next several hours learning about human military thinking. It was horrifying and fascinating at the same time. Humans had studied war like Zaphirians, studied mathematics. They had rules for everything. When to attack, when to retreat, when to sacrifice some, to save many. This is called acceptable losses, Captain Chen explained, pointing to a chart. In any battle, some of our people will die. We plan for it. How can you plan for death? Dr. Vex asked, her voice shaking. Because if we don't, more people die, the captain replied. Sometimes the best way to save lives is to risk them. As the hours passed, Dr. Vex began to understand something terrible. The peaceful species of the galaxy had survived because others had protected them. They lived in safety because somewhere, someone else was willing to fight. The humans were different. They came from a world where nothing was safe, where everything wanted to kill them. They had become strong because they had no choice. We've analyzed your evacuation ships, reported a human technician. They're fast, but they're not designed for combat. If the void swarm catches them, they will be destroyed. Dr. Vex finished quietly. Captain Chen nodded. We can escort some of them out, but not all. We don't have enough ships. Then what do you suggest? The captain looked at her star charts. We make a stand at your homeworld. We hurt the void swarm so badly, they think twice about chasing your people. You would fight an entire swarm to save strangers? Captain Chen seemed surprised by the question. Of course. That's why we came. Dr. Vex stared at this human female who spoke of death and sacrifice as easily as breathing. She was beginning to understand that humans were not like any other species in the galaxy. They were predators, yes, but they were predators who chose to hunt monsters. There is something you should know, Doctor, Vex said quietly. The other species, they are afraid of you. When word spreads that humans are willing to fight the void swarm, some will say you are as dangerous as the enemy. Captain Chen smiled, and for the first time, Doctor, Vex saw something gentle in her expression. Maybe they're right. But sometimes, the only way to stop a monster is to become something it fears more. The human ships began moving towards Zaphiria Prime. In the distance, the void swarm approached like a black tide. Soon, two very different kinds of predators would meet in battle. Dr. Vex watched the stars and wondered what her peaceful people had unleashed upon the galaxy. The void swarm hit Zaphiria Prime like a dark hurricane. Billions of biomechanical creatures poured out of space, blocking out the stars. They moved as one mind, flowing around the planet's defenses like water around rocks. Dr. Lyra Vex watched from the command center as her world began to die. The beautiful crystal cities were being torn apart, piece by piece. The energy shields that had protected them for centuries flickered and failed under the endless assault. "Our defense platforms are gone," reported Commander Thane, his voice hollow. "The evacuation ships are taking heavy losses. We have maybe 2 hours before they reach the surface." The Void Swarm creatures were unlike anything in nature. They looked like insects the size of buildings, with metal parts grafted onto their bodies. Their ship forms were living tissue wrapped around weapons. They adapted to every defense the Zaphirians used, learning and changing with each attack. "Where are the humans?" asked Elder Mora. The old leader looked tired and afraid. "Coming," Dr. Vex replied, checking her instruments. "They should be here any moment." Then, space exploded. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace right in the middle of the Void Swarm formation. Most species would have stayed at a safe distance and tried careful, precise attacks. The humans appeared inside the enemy swarm and started shooting everything around them. "What are they doing?" gasped Commander Thane. Dr. Vex watched in amazement as the human ships moved through the Void Swarm like sharks through a school of fish. They were not trying to be clever or elegant. They were trying to cause as much damage as possible, as quickly as possible. The UES Fenrir, Captain Chen's ship, was leading the attack. It fired its weapons in all directions while spinning like a top. Void Swarm creatures that got too close were torn apart by its rotating guns. "This is Fenrir to all ships," came Captain Chen's voice over the radio. "Remember the plan. Make them angry. Make them focus on us instead of the planet." Dr. Vex did not understand. Why would they want the enemy to attack them? She got her answer quickly. The Void Swarm had been systematically destroying the planet's infrastructure. But when the humans started killing large numbers of their creatures, everything changed. The entire swarm turned toward the human fleet, abandoning their careful strategy. "They're taking the bait," observed Commander Thane. The Void Swarm rushed toward the humans like angry wasps. The human ships were outnumbered, 1,000 to 1. Any sane commander would have retreated. Instead, the humans started howling. Dr. Vex had never heard sounds like the ones coming from the human ships. They were not words or music. They were the sounds that predators made when they hunted. Battle cries, war songs, the voices of creatures that had evolved to kill. "Contact! Contact! I've got multiple bogeys on my 6, shouted a human pilot. "Wolverine is taking heavy damage," reported another voice. "Ram them if you have to," Captain Chen ordered. "Show these things what Earth predators can do." Dr. Vex watched in horror and fascination as the battle unfolded. The humans fought like nothing she had ever seen. When their weapons ran out, they used their ships as weapons. When their ships were damaged, they kept fighting anyway. The UES Wolverine lost half its hull to a Void Swarm bioship. Instead of retreating, it accelerated directly into the enemy formation. The collision destroyed both ships in a ball of fire. "Wolverine is down," someone shouted. "Good hunting, Wolverine," Captain Chen replied quietly. "All ships, continue the attack." The humans showed no fear. When one of their ships was destroyed, the others fought harder. When they were outnumbered, they used tactics that made no logical sense. They split up their forces, attacked from multiple directions, and made the Void Swarm chase them all over the battlefield. "They fight like animals," whispered Elder Mora. "No," said Dr. Vex, beginning to understand. "They fight like a pack." She was right. The humans were using hunting strategies that went back millions of years on their home planet. One group would attack and draw the enemy's attention. While the Void Swarm chased them, another group would hit from behind. When the enemy turned to face the new threat, The first group would attack again. It was crude compared to advanced military tactics, but it worked. The Void Swarm could adapt to technology and strategy, but they could not adapt to pure instinct. The battle raged for hours. Human ships fell one by one, but each death cost the Void Swarm dozens of their creatures. The humans refused to give ground. When ordered to retreat, they pretended not to hear. When their weapons failed, they improvised new ones. The UES Honey Badger had its engines destroyed, but kept fighting with attitude thrusters. Its captain somehow managed to maneuver close enough to a Void Swarm hive ship to board it. "This is Honey Badger," came the captain's voice, now speaking from inside the enemy ship. "We're planting charges in their brain center. Tell my wife I love her." The hive ship exploded from the inside. Dr. Vex felt tears on her face. She had never seen courage like this. These humans were dying for people they had never met, on a world they had never seen, fighting an enemy they barely understood. And somehow, impossibly, they were winning. The Void Swarm began to fall back. For the first time in their expansion across the galaxy, they had encountered something they could not adapt to. Creatures that became more dangerous when cornered, that fought harder when wounded, that refused to surrender even when defeat was certain. "The swarm is retreating," reported Commander Thane, amazement in his voice. "Pursuing," came Captain Chen's voice. Her ship was damaged and leaking air, but she was chasing the Void Swarm as they fled the system. "Captain Chen," Dr. Vex called over the radio, "you don't have to chase them. You've saved our world." "Ma'am." "With respect," Captain Chen replied. "These things killed billions of people. They were going to kill your children. We're not done with them yet." The human ships followed the Void Swarm into deep space, howling their battle cries as they went. Dr. Vex watched them disappear into the darkness and realized that something had changed in the galaxy forever. The peaceful species were no longer alone. They had guardians now, predators who chose to hunt monsters. 3 weeks after the battle, Dr. Lyra Vex still could not sleep. Every night, she dreamed of human voices howling in the darkness of space. Every day, she watched recordings of the fight, trying to understand what she had witnessed. The crystal cities of Zaphiria Prime were being rebuilt. The evacuation centers were emptying as people returned to their homes. Life was slowly returning to normal. But Dr. Vex knew that nothing would ever be the same. She had requested all the data the Zaphirian sensors had collected during the battle. Frame by frame, she studied how the humans fought. What she found disturbed and amazed her in equal measure. "Computer, show me the boarding action by the Honey Badger crew," she said. The holographic display showed human soldiers moving through the interior of a Void Swarm hive ship. They moved in small groups, covering each other, communicating with hand signals. When they encountered Void Swarm creatures, they did not hesitate. They simply attacked. But it was not mindless violence. Every move was calculated. Every shot was placed with precision. These humans had turned killing into an art form. "Dr. Vex?" came a voice from behind her. She turned to see Captain Chen standing in her laboratory doorway. The human looked tired. Her uniform was clean, but Dr. Vex could see fresh scars on her hands. "Captain Chen, I was not expecting you. I thought your fleet had departed." "Most of it has," the captain replied. "A few of us stayed behind to help with the cleanup, and to learn from you." "Learn from us?" "But we know nothing about fighting." Captain Chen smiled. "That's exactly what we want to learn. How to live without fighting." Dr. Vex gestured to a chair. The human sat down, moving carefully. She was clearly in pain from her injuries. "I have been studying your battle recordings," Dr. Vex said. "I am trying to understand how you do what you do. And what do you think you've learned?" "That humans are not like other species," Dr. Vex replied. You do not fight because you are angry or cruel. You fight because it is what you were made to do. Captain Chen nodded slowly. Earth is not a kind world, Dr. Vex. Everything on our planet evolved to survive by being stronger, faster, or smarter than everything else. We humans survived by being all three. But you choose to use that ability to help others. Not all of us, the captain admitted. Some humans use their abilities for terrible things. But most of us, we know what it's like to be afraid. We know what it's like to need help. So when we hear someone crying for help, we come running. Dr. Vex pulled up another recording. This one showed a human soldier carrying a wounded Zaphirian child to safety, even while under fire from void swarm creatures. This soldier risked his life for one of our children, she said, someone he had never met. That's what we do, Captain Chen said simply. Over the following days, Dr. Vex interviewed dozens of human soldiers and pilots. Each conversation taught her something new about this strange species. Lieutenant Rodriguez told her about pack loyalty, the human instinct to protect members of their group, even at the cost of their own lives. When someone is in danger, you don't think about the odds, he explained. You just act. Sergeant Williams explained human persistence hunting. Our ancestors chased animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We didn't give up. Ever. That's what we did to the void swarm. We chased them until they broke. Commander Jackson talked about human adaptability. We've survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that should have wiped us out. We're very good at learning from our mistakes and finding new ways to survive. But it was Dr. Sarah Chen, the scientist who had first received the Zaphirian distress call, who helped Dr. Vex understand the most important thing about humans. We're not warriors by choice, Dr. Chen explained over a video call from Earth. We're warriors by necessity. But the thing that makes us human is that we choose who to fight for. As Dr. Vex compiled her research, disturbing news began to arrive from other parts of the galaxy. The Altarians had closed their borders to human ships, claiming they were too dangerous to civilized space. The Centauri Collective was studying human psychology, like they would study a disease. Several species had begun building larger military forces, afraid that humans might one day turn their weapons on former allies. They fear us now, Captain Chen said when Dr. Vex shared this information. I can't say I'm surprised. Oh, are they right to fear you? The captain was quiet for a long moment. Humans are capable of terrible things, Dr. Vex. Our history is full of wars and cruelty. But we're also capable of incredible kindness. The choice of which we become depends on how we're treated. Dr. Vex felt a chill. And if the galaxy treats you as monsters, then we might become what they expect us to be. That night, Dr. Vex received an urgent message from the Galactic Council. The Void Swarm had struck again, this time hitting the Centauri home system. They had adapted their tactics, using psychological warfare designed specifically to break human morale. The message was short: request immediate human assistance. Dr. Vex found Captain Chen in the human section of the space station. The captain was training a group of young Zaphirians in basic combat techniques. The sight of her peaceful people learning to fight made Dr. Vex's heart ache. The Centauri need help, she said, handing over the message. Captain Chen read it quickly. They wouldn't let our ships into their space last month. Called us dangerous primitives. And now? Now they need those dangerous primitives to save them. The captain stood up. We'll leave within the hour. Just like that? After they insulted you? Captain Chen looked at her with those sharp human eyes. Dr. Vex, when someone is in trouble, it doesn't matter what they said about us before. It only matters that they need help. As the human ships prepared to depart for another desperate battle, Dr. Vex realized she had learned the most important thing about humans. They were not monsters, pretending to be heroes. They were heroes who had learned to become monsters when necessary. The galaxy had called them beasts, but these beasts had chosen to use their fangs and claws to protect the innocent. even when the innocent feared them for it. The war had been raging for 6 months. The Void Swarm had consumed 12 worlds and was growing stronger with each victory. Half the galaxy lived in terror, while the other half pretended the threat would never reach them. Dr. Lyra Vex stood in the command center of the largest space station ever built. Representatives from 40 different species worked side by side, coordinating the final defense of galactic civilization. At the center of it all, giving orders to beings far older and more advanced than herself, stood Captain Sarah Chen. "The Void Swarm will reach the galactic core in 18 hours, reported a Centauri technician. "If they consume the energy sources there, they will become unstoppable." "How many ships do we have?" Captain Chen asked. 12,000 vessels from 30 species, replied Commander Thane, who now wore the uniform of the newly formed Galactic Defense Force. "The humans make up less than 5% of our numbers. But they make up 90% of our fighting ability," finished Elder Mora. The old Zaphirian leader had learned hard lessons about the nature of war. Dr. Vex watched the tactical display. The human contribution to the fleet looked tiny compared to the elegant ships of the other species. But she knew better now. Those crude human vessels were commanded by beings who had never learned how to surrender. "Captain," said a voice from the communication console, "we're receiving a transmission from the Void Swarm." The main screen flickered to life. The image that appeared was unlike anything they had seen before. It was not one of the insect-like Void Swarm creatures. Instead, it looked almost human, but wrong in ways that made Dr. Vex's skin crawl. "I am the voice of the collective," the thing said. Its words were perfect, but its mouth moved wrong. "I speak for the Void Swarm." "Khan." Captain Chen stepped forward. "I'm Captain Chen of the Galactic Defense Force. If you want to surrender, we're willing to discuss terms." The voice laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Surrender? We are offering you a choice. Join us, and your species will survive. Resist, and you will be consumed like all the others." "Counteroffer," Captain Chen replied. "Leave our galaxy, and we won't destroy you." "You interest us humans," the voice continued, as if she had not spoken. "We have consumed 1,000 civilizations, but we have never encountered predators like you. You fight with a fury that matches our own. You refuse to break even when all hope is lost. You are worthy to join the Great Consumption." Dr. Vex felt sick. The Void Swarm was offering to make humanity their partners in destroying the galaxy. "Think of it," the voice whispered. "No more struggling on your small world. No more fighting for resources. Join with us and feast on the galaxy itself. Take what you want. Destroy what you hate. Become the apex predators you were meant to be." The command center fell silent. Everyone was looking at Captain Chen, waiting for her response. Dr. Vex realized with horror that the offer made a twisted kind of sense. Humans were predators. The Void Swarm was offering them the ultimate hunt. Captain Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady and calm. "You're right about one thing. We are predators. We've been predators since we climbed down from the trees on our homeworld. We know how to hunt, how to kill, how to survive when everything else wants us dead." The voice smiled with too many teeth. "Then you accept? But you're wrong about what that makes us," Captain Chen continued. "Yes, we're predators, but we choose what we hunt. And right now, we're hunting you." The transmission cut off. The final battle began 3 hours later at the edge of the galactic core. The Void Swarm came like a black tide, billions of creatures moving as one mind. They had learned from their previous encounters with humans. This time, they came prepared. The battle was unlike anything in the history of warfare. Weapons that could destroy planets lit up the darkness of space. Ships the size of cities clashed in desperate combat. The fate of every living thing in the galaxy hung in the balance. Dr. Vex watched from the command ship as the coalition forces fought with everything they had. The peaceful species had learned to fight, guided by human tactics and human leadership. But it was not enough. "We're losing," reported Commander Thane. "They're adapting to everything we throw at them." "Not everything," Captain Chen said quietly. She was looking at a display that showed the heart of the Void Swarm formation. There. That's their central consciousness. If we can destroy that, the whole swarm dies. "It's surrounded by their strongest ships," Dr. Vex pointed out. "Nothing could get through." "Not nothing," Captain Chen replied. "The Terra Nova could make it." Dr. Vex looked at the human ship in question. It was one of the largest vessels in the fleet, but also one of the slowest. A direct assault would be suicide. "Captain, that's a colony ship. It has 10,000 people aboard." "Volunteers," Captain Chen corrected. "Every one of them volunteered when they heard the plan." Dr. Vex felt her heart sink. "What plan?" Captain Chen brought up a schematic on her screen. "The Terra Nova is carrying a quantum destabilizer. It's designed to tear apart the fabric of space itself. But it only works at close range. Point-blank range. You're talking about a suicide mission. I'm talking about the only way to win." Dr. Vex watched as the Terra Nova began its final approach. The massive ship accelerated toward the center of the Void Swarm formation, taking devastating fire from all sides. Pieces of its hull were torn away, but it kept moving forward. Over the radio came the voice of the Terra Nova's captain. "Tell our families we were proud to serve." The human ship smashed through the Void Swarm's defenses like a battering ram. Smaller vessels tried to stop it, but the Terra Nova's escort fighters cleared the way, sacrificing themselves one by one. Finally, the great ship reached the center of the enemy formation. Dr. Vex could see it on the main screen, dwarfed by the massive bioships that surrounded it. "Weapon-armed," Captain Torres reported. "Beginning final approach." The Terra Nova disappeared in a flash of light brighter than a star. When Dr. Vex's vision cleared, the entire center of the Void Swarm formation was gone. As she watched, the surviving Void Swarm creatures began to drift aimlessly, their controlling intelligence destroyed. The galaxy was saved, but the cost had been terrible. Thousands of ships were destroyed. Millions of beings had died. And Earth's greatest colony ship, carrying the hopes and dreams of humanity's expansion into the galaxy, was nothing but glowing particles in space. In the aftermath, as rescue ships searched for survivors and diplomats began planning for peace, Dr. Vex found Captain Chen standing alone on an observation deck. "I'm sorry about your people," Dr. Vex said softly. "They knew what they were signing up for," Captain Chen replied. "They chose to be heroes. Wah. The galaxy is safe because of them. Because of all of you." Captain Chen nodded slowly. "And now the galaxy has to decide what to do with us. The species that saved them and scared them." Dr. Vex had been thinking about this herself. How would the peaceful civilizations react to their violent saviors? How do you thank someone for becoming a monster to fight monsters? "What will humans do now?" she asked. "What we've always done," Captain Chen said. "We'll keep watch. When someone cries for help, we'll come running. Even if they're afraid of us. Even if they hate us for what we had to become." Dr. Vex looked out at the stars, where human ships were already beginning to patrol the trade routes, protecting species that would probably never trust them. She thought about the memorial being built on Zaphiria Prime, with its inscription in 100 different languages. "They heard our cry and came running." The galaxy had learned that sometimes the only way to defeat monsters was to have better monsters on your side. And humanity had chosen to be those monsters, even knowing it would cost them the chance to be anything else. They were the guardians of the galaxy now, whether the galaxy wanted them or not. And Dr. Vex suspected that was exactly how they preferred it.